Welcome to the Bold and Determined Podcast with your man Victor Pride. And right here on the Podcast for Winners, we're bringing you motivation and mindset for the killers and real dealers, the makers and the takers, the winners and the grinners, and goddamn, even the sinners too. Let's get started. Well, hello, my friendly friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Bold and Determined Podcast with your man, Victor Pride. And I tell you what, friends, I have become totally obsessed with this podcast. In the same way I was obsessed with the Bold and Determined blog in the past, I have now become fully and totally dedicated and obsessed to this podcast. Why do I bring that up? Great question. Before we delve into that, I want to let you know that at redsupplements.com you can buy Red Monkey, which is or was our number one selling product. You can buy one, get one free for a limited time only. Why? Our good government is banning a certain product called Finibit. Finibit is going to go bye-bye, and Finibit is one of the main ingredients in Red Monkey. So if you want to get a hold of the last little bit of Finibit that you're going to be able to get, I suggest you go to redsupplements.com. You stock up on Red Monkey, because when our stock is gone, it's going to be gone forever. Pause the show, go to redsupplements.com, get you a bunch of bottles of Red Monkey. It's buy one, get one free. When we're out forever. And that's all she wrote. Now, the reason I bring up being obsessed with a podcast is because I want to make doggone sure you get the most benefit out of this show. At the same time, I do the show from a selfish perspective. I do the show for a selfish reason. Let me tell you why and how I bring the Bold and Determined podcast to you. Now, as you may know, if you are a longtime follower of Bold and Determined, you may have noticed that the content in the format of the podcast is different than the blog. I'll tell you what, and I'll tell you why. The blog is written from the mindset of the bad guy. The blog is written to show you what it takes to actually make money and gain personal power in this world. I don't give a damn about your feelings. When I write, I'm writing to kick your teeth into the dirt. I'm writing to kick your face into the dirt and show you what it takes to make money and gain personal power. I did that for a long time. I blocked out everything in this world. For a long time, I focused on my goal of getting rich and getting out and gaining my freedom. I did that for a long time. I ignored everything around me for a long time, and I got there. I got what I wanted. I documented that journey at the Bold and Determined blog. And if you're new to this podcast, if you think the podcast is good, wait till you read the Bold and Determined blog. This podcast is great. The blog is better. Now, I listen to this podcast just for fun. After I record it, after I upload it, I listen to the damn thing just for fun. Usually I'll say to myself, you know what, let me just play a minute or two. Let me see how it sounds. Let me make sure everything is fine. And I listen to the whole thing from start to finish. So for me, I know it's a great podcast because I personally listen to it. And let me go off on a tangent here. If you want to be some sort of content creator, or if you want to make money online and you don't know how, let me give you one tip, or let me show you one way. Let's say you want to just spend your time doing research, which is a lot of what I do these days. I do research, then I bring it to you on this podcast. Let's say you want to do research and you don't want to work a job. I don't blame you. Here's what you can do. Do your research. Synthesize the research and put it in your own words. Then present your findings via a YouTube channel or via a podcast or via a blog. After time, you will develop an audience who wishes to support you, who wishes to learn from you. And in time, you can make money from that audience. You can write a book to sell to them. You can write a course to sell to them. You can even get donations from them. Yes, there are many people today who simply do research. They present their research via a YouTube channel. The people who watch that YouTube channel give them donations because they enjoy that person's content. They enjoy that person's information. So if you're listening to this and you are interested in the research aspect and you are also interested in making money online and buying your freedom, there's one way you can do it. Do your research, synthesize the research, put it in your own words, and then publish it. After a while, when you have developed an audience, you can monetize it. Now, as you know, on this podcast, it's not a make money podcast. It's a talk about the problems of the world podcast. If you want to learn how to make money, go to boldanddetermined.com, read the blog articles. I've already told you how to get rich. The blueprint is already there. We don't have to go into that now. The reason I bring that up is to let you know that the way I do this podcast is different than the way I write the blog. The blog is to take no prisoners, kick your dick in the dirt, show you what it takes. Do this, get rich. Don't do it, stay poor. That's all there. It's always going to be there. You can go there, read it anytime, get rich at your leisure. The reason I do the podcast is different. It's much different. Now, if you've read the articles, you'll know that I'm not what you would call a normal person. I'm not your average Alan. I'm not your jerk-off Joe, your regular person. I don't think like a regular person. I don't look like a regular person. And I don't act like a regular person. And when I'm in the mindset of just building my business and making my money, it's very beneficial to think in that way. It's very beneficial for me to put on my selfish blinders and only focus on my goal and don't see what's going on around me. And I did that for a long time. For a number of years, I ignored everything that was going on around me. I just ignored it. And that worked for me to make my money, to buy my freedom. Now, I don't work. I don't make money to buy cars. I don't give a damn about a Ferrari. I don't give a damn about a Lamborghini. I don't give a damn about a Rolex watch. I'm here to buy my freedom. And everybody who emails me says the same thing, or everybody who talks to me says the same thing. When I meet people who are at their job, and they learn that I don't have a job and that I just travel, they always say the same thing. I want to do what you do. I want what you have. I want the freedom that you have. I just can't do it. Well, who do you think would want freedom? What kind of person would dream of freedom? What person is that? That person is a slave. It is the slaves who dream of freedom. I was a slave as well. I dreamt of freedom. I dreamt of nothing more than freedom. I did the work and I got it. The price I paid to do it, I had to ignore everything around me and focus solely on my goal. It's like being in a tunnel. All you see is the light at the end of the tunnel. Everything else in your world is darkness. The only thing you can see is that light at the end of the tunnel. And I focused on that light. For so many years, I was looking at the light at the end of the tunnel. I saw nothing else. Everything else was pitch black. Total darkness. All I saw was that light at the end of the tunnel. And I got there. I got to that light at the end of the tunnel. And when I got there, I realized, shit, I've got money, but what else do I have? I don't have a whole bunch of anything. You see, what I realized when I was back out into the light finally, after working in darkness and only seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, when I looked around, I saw the problems in the world. Specifically, I saw the problems in my home country, the once great United States of America. And in particular, I saw the problems within my own family. Big problems. Problems that cannot be ignored. Health problems. Mental problems. Problems that are so obvious to an outsider. And me, as an outsider, I was outside of the United States for almost a decade, give or take. So when I went back with open eyes and open ears, what I found shocked me. What I see going on in the United States shocked me. And I realized I cannot ignore this anymore. I cannot ignore what's going on. I have to talk about these problems because they're right in my face. They're so abundant and so apparent. I can't stay quiet about this anymore. I cannot ignore this anymore. I can easily go back into the tunnel and make more money. But what's the point? When you get out of the tunnel, what's waiting for you? Well, what was waiting for me was complete degradation of my country and of my family. When I go back to the United States, it shocks me how sick the people are, how dumb the people are, how dumbed down the people are, how much freedom they have lost, and how much knowledge they have lost, how much knowledge they don't have. Knowledge about just even the outside world, other countries. They're frightened of other countries. They think their country is the safest, when in fact it is their country that is feeding them genetically modified foods, causing them to go to the hospital to get medicines that are causing them to give all their money away to these doctors and then die early. I see big problems in the health of my people. And the question is, do I continue to be the bad guy and show you how to ignore all that so you can get your money and get your freedom? And I'm not here to tell you you shouldn't get your money or your freedom. You should. However, we do need to focus on the light at the end of the tunnel and what's going to be there for us. If we continue to ignore what's going on in the world, there's not going to be very much of a world left for us in the Western world. So, the Bold and Determined blog, where I show you how to get rich, that's coming to you from the mindset of a maniac who is on a mission to get rich and does not care about anything else. Focus on the work, do the work, conquer your goals, conquer your fears, eliminate self-sabotage, accomplish the mission, get rich and get out and get your freedom. That's good. That's fine. That's great. And it takes a certain mindset to do that. A mindset that a normal man cannot contemplate. You cannot be ordinary to do it. You must be extraordinary. And Bold and Determined, the blog, is written from the mindset of the extraordinary. It's written for the extraordinary man. It was never written for the ordinary man. However, when I got out of this tunnel, when I saw what was going on in the world, I changed gears. I shifted my focus. And now I bring this podcast to you from the mind of an ordinary man, from the mindset of an ordinary man. I don't come to you with extraordinary ideas. I come to you with ordinary ideas because what I see in the world is so far gone that just being ordinary would bring it all back together. And I admit to you, here and now, I confess, Your Honor, I'm not ordinary and I don't follow my own advice. The advice I give on this podcast, it's meant to bring a level of stability and happiness back to the Western world. I realize it is a contradiction that I myself don't follow it, but what I see is that people have no common sense nowadays, and all you have to do is give them a little bit of common sense and common knowledge, the same thing your great-grandfather would know, to get them back on the right track, because we have been driven so far off track. You don't have to be extraordinary to stand out. You just need to be ordinary. So with this podcast, I come to you with the mind and the goals of an ordinary man who wants an ordinary life with an ordinary family and ordinary happiness.
But Victor, you're contradicting yourself. You don't even follow your own advice.
You're right, I don't. I make no apologies for it. On the last episode, you may remember we had a discussion about Christianity and the magic word Jesus that people hate. People hate the word Jesus. We did a whole podcast about Christianity. I myself am not a Christian, nor will I ever be a Christian. And I'll tell you why. And I will also explain how contradiction can help you in your goals to succeed. You see, this episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to come to you with the mind of an ordinary man. I'm going to dig deep down and try to give you some real knowledge that I've learned. I say real knowledge, but understand one thing. I am but a humble fool. I don't know anything in this world. I know precious few things. All I know is what I did and what I see. I'm not a genius. I'm not learned. I'm not a scholar. I did not attend a prestigious school. In the school I did attend, I usually skipped. So I am but a humble fool. I have barely any knowledge. And as you have already learned, I have nothing in this world. Some money doesn't mean anything, okay? Doesn't mean anything. But let me tell you about contradiction, about good and evil. Let me tell you about the way that it really is. Now, last time we talked about you've got to have your morals. You've got to know right from wrong. You got to know yes from no. That's all true, but that's all for the ordinary man. For the extraordinary man, you must go deeper. For the extraordinary man, you must understand the laws of polarity, the principle of polarity, and that is this. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different only in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. When you understand this, you will be well equipped on your journey to buy yourself some freedom. It has always been quite obvious to me that success is a contradiction. And even on this very podcast, I tell you things that are in direct opposition to what I've told you in the Bold and Determined blog. This podcast is a direct contradiction of the Bold and Determined blog. It is the exact opposite of what I tell you in the Bold and Determined blog. But listen here, both are true at the same time. Yes, I can tell you, you got to be a bad guy if you want to make money. That's true. Then I'll come in here and I'll tell you, you shouldn't be a bad guy. Those are both true. You have to understand the principle of polarity. You have to understand how to unite the contradictions. If you can unite the contradictions, you can create cash out of thin air. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What is the goal of this podcast? The goal of this podcast is not to create cash out of thin air. The goal of this podcast is very simple. I want society to be pleasant. I want Western society. I want society in the United States to be pleasant, happy, and fun. And it is not. That is why I bring this podcast to you. That is why I bring this podcast to you from the mind of an ordinary man. And I tell you, everything is black or white. There's no in between. You gotta know yes or no. You gotta be strong in your morals. You gotta know the difference between good and evil. When I myself don't practice that. You see, I understand that good and evil depend only on perspective. What I think of as good, somebody else thinks of as evil. What I think of as evil, somebody else thinks of as good. Let me give you an example to prove this. Is the liberal Democrat Party good or evil? Well, if you are a Republican, they're evil. If you are a Democrat, they're good. Is the Republican Conservative Party good or evil? Well, if you are a Democrat, then the Republicans are evil. But if you are a Republican, then the Republicans are good. Who is right? Well, the Democrats will say they're right, and the Republicans will say they are right. They will say that each other is evil. Which one of them is right? I'll tell you what. Both of them are right. Because all truths are nothing but half-truths. And when you pick sides, which is what I have done on this podcast, I have chosen to pick sides, and I have paid the price for it. But what happens when you pick sides? That is when you become conscious of the knowledge of good and evil. Do you remember in the Garden of Eden, Eve was tricked by the serpent into taking a bite from the apple that came from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What does that mean? It means that she chose sides. That's what the knowledge of good and evil is. When you know the difference between good and evil, let's say, for example, you think Democrats are evil, that means you pick sides with the Republicans. And guess what? What does that cause you in your life? That causes you suffering. When you pick sides, when you join a team, that means your team is good and the other team is evil. That is the knowledge of good and evil. When you take a bite from the apple from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you become divided and easily conquered. Let me tell you about the happiest man I've met in, a long time. I was getting a passport photo to renew my passport. Now I've got a gigantic beard and I'm growing my hair out, so it's not the greatest photo. I admit I look a little bit like the Unabomber. Anyway, I was inside the photography studio trying to get my passport photo taken, speaking barely any Spanish, saying, "Pasaporte foto, pasaporte foto." Finally, they understood what I wanted, and this woman walked in. She was very pleasant. She was radiant. She spoke English. So she helped me a little bit, translate a little bit. She was very nice, very pleasant, very lovely. On her way out, she mentioned that her husband was going to come in. He was from New York. And then she offered me a piece of candy, which is strange in this part of the world because people are not that super duper friendly to you. She was very friendly. She offered me a piece of candy. She left. A man came in who was white, and I heard by his accent that he was not a native Spanish speaker. So he went to talk to the person at the counter. Then he came and he sat down next to me, and I looked at him and I said, "You're from New York?" And he said, "Yeah. How did you know?" I said, "Your wife was just in here. She mentioned she was married to an American from New York." I put two and two together. So I started talking to this man, and I could tell right away there was something different about this man. This man seemed very content to me. And usually when I meet Americans abroad, let me just be frank, a lot of the times they're alcoholics. A good deal of the time, they're alcoholics. There was something different about this man. There was a contented air about this man. He was very content and very happy within himself. And we got to talking, and he was telling me that he was the pastor of some church around here. I forget which one. But he was saying to me that him and his wife take absolutely no part in politics whatsoever. They don't choose sides. Under any circumstances, they don't choose sides. And the reason they don't choose sides is because if you choose a side, that means you give consent for man or government to rule over you. And in his eyes, only God can judge you. Only God is who you must work for. And man does not have the right to rule over another man. Only God has the right to rule over man. So this man told me this, and I said, yes, I agree. I feel the same way. And I was waiting for it. Just like you're waiting for it, I was waiting for it. I was waiting for him to say, hey, why don't you come down and join my church? Join my cult. But you know what? Never happened. We had a nice conversation. He told me about his activities with the church, how he takes absolutely no side. And I tested him a little bit. I mentioned the liberals. I mentioned the conservatives, and I watched for the look in his eye, and it didn't change. This man literally did not take sides whatsoever. And this was the happiest man with the happiest wife that I have seen personally in a long time. This man did not take a bite from the apple that fell from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So it has finally occurred to me what that story represents and what the way to true happiness is. And it has occurred to me that when you take sides, that's how they rule you. This man would not be ruled by the government because this man knew that only God has the authority. Man does not have the authority. And because he would not choose sides, nobody could rule over him. Yeah, I know what you're thinking.
Well, they've got guns and they can do whatever they want.
Listen here. The government is not all-powerful. And if you, for example, leave the country, the power that they have greatly diminishes. It greatly diminishes. And if in your mind you believe that man does not have the authority to rule over you, it is only God that has authority to rule over you. And if you are prepared to never take sides, then what power do they have over you? Now remember, like and unlike are the same. Extremes meet in the middle. Opposites are identical in nature. When you take sides, of what use is that? What use is it being a left wing or a right wing? The only thing that's going to happen is if you're left wing, you're going to fight with the right wing. And if you're right wing, you're going to fight with the left wing. And then the puppet masters are going to orchestrate your fighting. This is what we call divide and conquer. It's the oldest strategy on earth to rule over people. And it is you who give consent to be ruled over when you choose sides. When you say, I'm left wing, I'm right wing. It is when you do that. That is when you can be controlled and ruled. I don't do that. I don't choose any sides. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. If you ask me, Victor, are you this? Are you that? The answer is no. I'm none of it. I've never been any of it. I never will be any of it. But I have taken sides. On this podcast, I have taken sides because I see the path that our people are on. It is a path of destruction. You have to know, you have to be able to see that the Western world is on a path of destruction. I cannot be the only one who sees that. Surely I'm not the only one who sees that. The problem is when I go to America, the Americans are blinded to it. They don't see it. They really don't see it. They don't see the problems in their own lives. They don't see a problem with having to go to the doctor all the time and get all these medicines because they're eating these fake genetically modified foods and they're spraying poison in the air or whatever they're spraying in the air. They're spraying something and the people are sick. That's very noticeable to me. Very noticeable. So this show, this podcast is a reaction to what I see in America when I go back. And I admit to you, being reactive is not the best way to be. The Bold and Determined blog is all about being proactive, never being reactive. Well, this podcast is different. This podcast is the exact opposite. On this podcast, it's totally reactive to the modern world. In the blog where I show you how to get rich, how to get free, it's totally proactive. And I would recommend either one of two things for you. You need to be proactive and get rich and buy your freedom, or you need to just stop caring about money altogether. You need to do one of the two. What you don't want to be is stuck in the middle, working some job you hate to pay for things you don't need because you're in debt and dumbed down. So either get rich or be happy with nothing. Both of those are good options. I do not judge whether or not you want to get rich or you want to just say, you know what, I'm just going to make enough money to get by and not be a slave to the system. It's the people in the middle who are the biggest slaves to the system. Those are the people I despise the most because of their own stupidity. Those are the people who waste their lives away as slaves. The 9-to-5ers who work Monday through Friday, 51 weeks a year, hating every single day. Why do they do it? Why do they do it? Are they born slaves? Maybe. Do they yearn for freedom? Of course they do. Every one of them says exactly the same thing to me. I wish I could do what you do. I just can't do it. Well, you can do it. The reality is you won't do it. If you wanted to do it, you would have done it. I wanted to do it. That's why I did it. And to do it, I had to think beyond good and evil. Like Nietzsche, I had to think beyond good and evil. I never thought about good and evil. When I built my path to success, never thought about good and evil. Good and evil didn't cross my mind until I already achieved it and went back to the States and was shocked by what I saw. What is going on in the United States is appalling. It's terrible. It's awful. It's atrocious. Things are much worse than when I left nearly 10 years ago. And that is what birthed this podcast. I must say something about that. Now, will I be able to continue talking about that? I really don't know. What is really going on is a reaction to seeing the sorry state of my own family. That is what is driving me on this podcast. They're not going to change, and that's the stone cold reality. They're not going to change. You can be the shining light all you want, but you cannot make somebody else change. And we could blame the Jews, we could blame the bankers, we could blame the Catholics, we can blame the Jesuits, we can blame the Illuminati, we can blame the television. The reality is, you have free will. You make your choices. So if you are fat, sick, stupid, retarded, weak, dumb, poor, it's because you chose that. Now, of course, they helped you along. But you turned on the television. You turned on the Facebook. You put your mind into that world. You let them infect your mind. So the blame for your life, even though the external circumstances are outside of your control, for your own life, you are in charge. You can buy your freedom, but you do run into the problem that you can buy your own freedom. You cannot buy the freedom of all of your family. Even if you make enough money to support them, they still have the mindset of the retarded slave. You cannot buy your way out of that mindset. You must work your way out of that mindset. So, this podcast has been a reaction to what I saw in America. It has been my goal to reverse what I saw in America. I've come to the realization that I cannot reverse anything I saw. Nothing will change right now. The only thing I can do is educate a new generation. And the new generation is being educated and being woken up. The old generation will simply die off. They will not change. The new generation is waking up. Not all of them, not most of them, but a lot of them are. So, the point of that speech is, I do wonder, is coming at you from the mind of an ordinary man. Is that the best way to go about this? Is that the best way to affect change? I'm not sure that it is, and I'm not sure that it isn't. So today, I'm going to come to you from the mind of the extraordinary and tell you certain keys, certain tools that you'll need to use, certain mental tools that you will need to use. Now, in the last episode, we talked about Christianity, how that was a good thing, yada, yada, yada. I can sit here right now and I can tell you about all of the dangers and the pitfalls of Christianity. That's what I mean about understanding the principle of polarity, understanding the contradictory nature of all things. I can do one episode talking to you about Christianity, how it's been good for society. I can do another episode talking about the exact opposite. The darn thing is, I can mean both of them. Both of them can be true. You have to understand the contradictory nature of all things in this world. There's a north and a south pole. There's a day and a night. There's a God and a devil. On a battery, you have positive and negative. Without the positive and the negative, guess what you don't have? You don't have energy. You don't have life. Both are needed. Both are needed. That is one thing that the normal mind cannot process. The need for the duality. The need for both to work in unison. Without day, guess what you don't have? You don't have night. Without night, you don't have day. Without good, you don't have evil. Without evil, you don't have good. Without the North Pole, you don't have the South Pole. And guess what? North and the South Pole are the same. They just differ in degree. They just differ in perspective.
But Victor, in the last episode, you told us that you got to know the difference between good and evil, and you've got to know to have your strong morals.
Yeah, of course you do. What you don't need to do is rely on outside sources to give you your morals. If you want to be an independent man in this land, you've got to do the work for yourself. You've got to develop your own moral code. You cannot blindly follow any code, or any set of laws, or any set of rules, or any man. You must be the decider. You must look at the information and decide for yourself what is true and what is not true. And when we look at something like the Bible, guess what? There is a lot of truth in the Bible, and there are a lot of falsehoods in the Bible. You will never get a piece of information that is completely and totally true, and you will likely not get a piece of information that is completely and totally false. They will be combined. There is a lot of great information in the Bible, and to throw away the Bible and say that there is nothing you can learn from the Bible is naive. On the other hand, saying, the Bible is the direct word of God, I've got to follow everything in the Bible, that is also naive. There are many falsities in the Bible. In the Bible, it is commanded of you to sacrifice your firstborn to Jehovah. Your firstborn child you must sacrifice to Jehovah, as well as the firstborn of your livestock. I certainly hope you're not following that one. In the Bible, it also tells you to be happy being a slave. If that's your lot in life, then you must accept being a slave and be happy about it. That one is a falsehood as well. You see, there are a lot of great truths in the Bible. There are also a lot of great falsehoods in the Bible. You must be a man with a plan and determine for yourself what is true, what is false. Nobody will make you rich, and nobody will buy your freedom except for you. To do that, you must do the work. You must be a learned man. I'm not talking about your schooling. I'm not talking about your education. I'm talking about your self-education. You must look at all of the information and decide for yourself what is true and what is false. And I'll give you a little tip to show you what's real and what's not real. If something does not empower you, it's false. If you get a bad feeling about something, it's false. If something doesn't feel right, it's false. If something fills you with a sense of personal power, it's true. If something empowers you and energizes you, it's true. If you are a man with a plan, you should never be reading something or watching something or listening to something that drains you of energy. If what you are consuming does not give you energy, stop consuming it. That's the rule. And to get rich and free, you do need to be inside of that tunnel and ignore everything else. Everything else is trying to take your energy and trying to lead you. You must ignore it. You must lead yourself and only consume content that energizes you and pushes you forward and fills you with personal power. If it doesn't fill you with personal power, it's wrong and it was written or recorded in an effort to control you. That's what most of the Bible is. It's an effort to control you. Does that mean we cannot find good wisdom in it? No, it doesn't mean that. Does it mean you should follow everything in the Bible? If you want to be a slave, you should follow everything in the Bible. The Bible is a great blueprint for becoming a slave. A great blueprint. I'll tell you what, the first time I read Genesis, the first book of the New Testament, first time I read it, I thought to myself, oh dear goodness God, this is a book teaching people how to be a slave. This is a book of black magic, enslaving the minds of people. And I tell you what I thought. The first time I read Genesis, the first book of the New Testament, I'll tell you what I thought. I thought, the God of this book is Satan. Now, we did speak about that a couple times. I told you the Freemasons believe that God is the devil and devil is God. They believe that in the Bible, it is reversed, and Jehovah, the God of the Bible, is actually Satan. I'm starting to think they might be right, to be perfectly honest. First time I read the Bible, that's exactly what I thought. 2 years ago, when I read Genesis, the first book of the Bible, I thought to myself, that's the devil. We're not going to get into Bible study in this episode, but it is important for you to understand. You need to think for yourself. And in prior episodes, I have come to you from the mind of an ordinary man with an ordinary plan, showing you that even though, yes, Christianity is a tool meant to enslave you, it's better than what's going on now in the modern world. I've come to the obvious conclusion that nothing is going to be changed in our modern world. The mechanism is in place and has been in place for so long that me talking about it is not going to change it. It's just not going to change it. All it's going to do is put me in a reactive position and make me choose sides. Guess what? Guess what happens when you choose sides? Easily divided and conquered. Easily ruled. Easily ruled. So I'll tell you what. I really don't think I'm going to be on these topics for too many more episodes. I don't know what we're going to get into. I certainly feel like reacting to the problems of the modern world is not empowering. If it's not empowering, it's disempowering. And if it's disempowering, slit its fucking throat. Get rid of it. So while it is certainly disheartening to see what's going on in America, in most of the world, the Western world at least, it's certainly disheartening. Does it actually do any good to react to it? Does it actually do any good to pick sides and say, you shouldn't do that, that's bad, that's evil? Does it actually help you in any way? I'm coming to the obvious conclusion that no, it doesn't. It's taken a bite from the apple, fallen from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And has it helped things? No, it hasn't. So, the Western world, it's on fire. We all know that. You know that. I know that. What's the solution? That's what I don't know. What I do know is that the left-wingers, they've got some good points. A lot of what they say is true. I do know that the right-wingers, the conservatives, a lot of what they say is true. They've got some good points. Both of them have some very, very good points. So what would be better? Would it be better to take the good points from the left and the good points from the right and to form your own opinion? Or would it be better to say, I'm a right wing or I'm a left wing, and then fight with each other? You fighting with each other in the first place is how they're able to effectively rule over you. It's a fool's errand in the end to take sides. And that was a mistake I made, trying to fix the problems that I see in my own community when it's not possible for me to fix them. You cannot be a savior to everybody. All you can save is yourself. Here's a bit of wisdom that comes from the good book. Salvation comes from within. And of course, the reason I bring you these tips like get married, have children, is because the human being has a certain set of needs or a certain set of rules. It's like buying a piece of electronic equipment or like buying a stereo or buying a dishwasher. It comes with a set of instructions. If you follow the instructions, the piece of electronic works like a charm. It works very well. If you disregard the instructions and do what you want to do, you're going to break the equipment. It's the same thing with humans. We all need certain things in this world. And when we don't get these certain things in this world, we get broken. So we need certain things like family support. That's something we need in this world. And that's something that is not being given to us. Something that is not being taught to us. We are forgetting that knowledge. We are forgetting what is needed as a human. So even though I bring to you these tips from the mind of an ordinary man, I don't come at you with a plan to keep you down or enslave you. These are basic, necessary tips from the rule book of being human that we have all forgotten. We have all allowed ourselves to forget. In the rule book, men have to act like men, women have to act like women. And the man and the woman, the pairs of opposites, they have to unite and come together and produce life, or in other words, be fruitful and multiply. This is what needs to happen. This is the blueprint of the human being. And this is the message that I bring to you. While this would not be a message that I would ever bring to you if I were trying to teach you how to get rich and get free. If you want to get rich and free, you've got to be selfish. If you want to work correctly as a human, if you want to operate your body correctly, you should take a look at the owner's manual and see what needs to happen. To operate the body correctly does not require you getting rich, though it helps. It does require certain things. Those things are a good, strong family, good food, healthy, natural food, not be drugged up with pharmaceutical medicines, not being sprayed by toxins in the air, not having toxins in your food and in your water. Very simple things. Eating the right food for the human. Just very, very simple things, very ordinary things. If you follow the instructions, you perform flawlessly. If you don't follow the instructions, you break down. And when I go to America, that's what I see. I see a bunch of broken down people. And I hate to keep bringing up the same subject, but it's the driving force of this entire podcast. I see a broken down America. I see a disintegrating America, disintegrating people, broken down people. I don't want to see it anymore. The only thing I can think to do is come on this podcast and tell you about it. My question is there any benefit to that whatsoever? Can the lost souls be saved? Oh, good golly gosh. To be honest, I don't think so. Like it is said in Revelation, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Ooh, sounds like America to me, don't it? Babylon the Great, how she is fallen. So what's the choice? Either play the game and take sides, or break free from the game. The game is divide and conquer, and if you choose one side over the other, you will always remain in the game, because the game is to control one side or the other and get them to fight each other. The only real freedom is to choose no side. Alexander asks, could you comment on nature's law of survival of the fittest? Survival of the fittest is a fun topic. We all know about Charles Darwin, who gave his theory of evolution, said we all came from monkeys, we evolved from being monkeys. The problem with that is that we didn't come from monkeys. Humans are humans. We didn't come from monkeys. We've always been human. They want you to think that you came from a monkey. They want you to think that you're small. They want you to think that you're nothing, that you're nobody, that you have no power. They don't want you to remember who you are. Let me tell you something. You are much more than what you think you are. You are much more than a monkey man. In fact, you are not a monkey man at all. You have inside you the spirit of the Creator, the spark of light given to you by the Creator. We are all divine beings, all of us. We have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten what we are. Now, regarding nature's law of survival, if you survive, you win. If you die, you lose. Now, everybody dies. We know this. The way that you continue to survive is you continue your bloodline. So if you're alive, and if you're listening to this, you are alive, that means your family, your bloodline has continued through the ages. You're not of a new bloodline. You are of a very ancient bloodline. And your family survived through all the wars, all the famines, all the bad weather. They survived through everything and they reproduced. And that's why you're here in this world. The rule of this life is to survive and to thrive. And survival of the fittest doesn't mean what we think it means. We think that it means only the strong survive. The strongest people in the world survive. Well, take a look around you, friend. Is everybody around you a strong and fit specimen of human musculature and mental fortitude? No, they're not. A lot of them are dumb, rotund, weak, not particularly fit. You would not call them the strongest, would you? What we have today, actually, is quite the opposite of survival of the strong. You see, in wars, the strongest men are killed. So over generations and generations, all of the actually strongest men of the world die out, leaving us with what we have today, a bunch of nations full of weak men. So that's the reality. Survival of the fittest doesn't mean the strong survive. It means the ones who survived were smart enough or clever enough or even afraid enough to not go die in some battle or die in some war. Or they were smart enough to take shelter in a cave during a snowstorm and not freeze to death. It can mean any number of things. So really, it's not a very important theory, the survival of the fittest. It just means you didn't die. Some people died out of sheer bad luck. Some people died in cataclysms that they could not avoid. If a volcano explodes and you're a mile away from it, your whole family is dead. If an asteroid hits, you're dead. Nothing you can do about it. Part of it is luck. Part of it is cunning. A lot of the people who survived and are now the bloodlines who ruled the world, they're the ones who get other people to fight for them. They're the cunning ones who get other people to do battle. Now, if we look at the bloodlines, if we look at the rulers of the world, those are not the strongest people in the world. Those are not the fittest people in the world. In a physical battle, those people would be dead, but they don't do battle physically. They convince others to do their battles for them. Look at the famous people. Look at the rulers of the world. They are not strong specimens of masculinity. Usually they're short and fat. They're not the fittest in the world, yet they are at the top of the food chain. How is that? It's because they are the most devious, the most cunning, and the most cruel. That's who survives to the top of the food chain. The sociopathic tendencies, the sociopathic mentality. And we hear about, sociopaths and narcissists. Listen, that's how you succeed in this world. You be a sociopathic narcissist. That's how you succeed. Those same traits we label as some sort of mental illness, everybody at the top of any industry fits those mental illnesses. Sociopathy, narcissism, whatever that shit means. All the people at the top, they have some sort of God complex. They have some sort of mental disorder. Only to them, it means success. To the average person, it's a mental disorder. To the people at the top of the pyramids of power, it's how it got them success in the first place. And it was not being fit that got them success in the first place. Look at Donald Trump, for example. Now, Donald Trump has a strong masculine energy, but that masculine energy has not manifested itself in his body. Look at his body. For one example, he's got a weak chin, doesn't have a strong chin. Your first evidence of a strong, fit masculinity is a strong jaw, a strong chin. Donald Trump doesn't have it. Number two, the man is over 70 years old. Have you ever seen him with any sort of facial hair? Have you ever seen him with a beard? Have you ever seen him with 5 o'clock shadow? You never have. Never one whisker on his face. The man is 70 years old, can't grow a facial hair. He can't grow a single facial hair. Neither can his children. Don Jr., he's got a beard that looks like it was sewn in from doll's hair. He looks like he went to the doctor and got a doll hair transplant in his face to grow his beard. Look at Don Jr. His beard looks fake. Don Jr. also does not have a chin, does not have a jaw, does not have a strong masculine face. They have a recessive, almost retarded looking chin and jaw. Back to Donald Trump. Can't grow facial hair, doesn't have a good jaw, has the rotund body of a woman. Watch him in his golfing pictures. Look at him in his golfing pictures. Look at the way he walks. He's got the rotund body shape of a woman. You can see in his suit, his nipples popping out. His nipples protrude from his suit. He has the hands of a woman. Look at his hands. He's got the hands of a woman. He has to drink a Fiji bottle of water with 2 hands. So this is not the fittest person in the world. This is one of the most devious, one of the most cunning, one of the most cruel, but not the physically fittest. Can't even drink a bottle of water with one hand. So masculine men, the fittest men, what we think of as fit, as the most masculine, these men don't rule the world. Look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the same. Has the rotund body of a girl, of a woman, has the face of a woman. Mark Zuckerberg. Are you telling me that Mark Zuckerberg is the fittest? In a battle of survival, Mark Zuckerberg is going to be victorious? Well, he is because he's devious. And when we talk about survival of the fittest, we're not talking about the most physically fit. Nature doesn't give a damn about that. If you can convince other people to bring you food, if you can convince other people to fight for you, if you can convince other people to give you shelter, what need do you have to be physically fit? You don't have any need to be physically fit. So this law of survival of the fittest, it doesn't mean what you think it means. It doesn't mean only the strong survive, and all you have to do is take a look around you and see the people around you and see how weak they are to realize that survival of the fittest doesn't mean only the strong survive. In fact, probably means the opposite. Usually, the less fit humans survive because the most fit, they go off and they fight in battle, or they go off and they explore and they do risky things. That's what masculine men do. That's what truly fit men do. They do risky things that could cost them their life. And the people who don't do that are the ones who survive. And then it's these men who are not the most physically fit men who go on to rule the worlds, who go on to form the governments of the worlds. And as we all know, the government is the leading cause of death in the world. It's not cancer, it's not heart disease. The government is the leading cause of death in the world because these type of people are the people who lead the governments, the most devious, the most cunning, the most cruel. These are the people that get other people to fight against each other. These are the people that divide and conquer. At the top of the pyramid, they're not on the left and they're not on the right. They just want you to fight each other. They don't give a damn about size. They don't give a damn about nations. They don't give a damn about religions. But they want you to pick a side. They really, really want you to pick a side. Because when you pick a side, guess what? Easy to be conquered by the least masculine men in the world. And that's the reality of the world we're living in today. We are ruled by some of the least masculine men in the world. They've got masculine energy, but that masculine energy is not manifest on their bodies. They have weakling bodies. RH asks, what are your thoughts on writing family history? Do you think it's a way to build a stronger family unit? That's a great question. And actually, I believe that's the only solution for the predicament we find ourselves in. Now, I myself, I've already told you, I went back, I saw my family, I was shocked by what was going on, and I realized there's no solution. There's nothing I can do. I've tried my best, done everything I can do, and they don't want to change. What can change, however, is the future. Every great family started with one man making the decision to build a great dynastic family. So the only way to ensure your future progeny are not slaves is to build that family, is to create a new family and teach them the secrets of success, teach them the secrets of wealth, and keep the money in the bloodline. Because you can make as much money as you want, but if you don't have children, where does that money go? It goes to some foundation, it goes to the government. What does it go to? If you make money, you want to keep that money in the family bloodline. You want to create a new family. You want to create a new family culture. You want to start a dynastic family that can have power in this world. Because what you don't want is to have a family of slaves. You don't want to let your line continue to be slaves. Everybody who is not part of a dynastic family is a slave in this world. And to break free from slavery, you have to do what I did. You have to break free of the matrix. You've got to get out of the system. You've got to make money on your own without having a job. Okay, that's step one. What do you do with this money after you acquire it? What, you just die and let the government take it out of your bank account? Where does it go? Let's say you make money. Okay, great. You've made money. And then you're getting into old age. When you're in old age, your parents are already going to be dead. So who is going to get your inheritance? What is going to become of this money, of this wealth, of this power after you are gone? We have to think long term. That's what the family bloodlines do. The bloodlines that rule this world, they think long term. They think in terms of centuries, not in terms of days. They don't live paycheck to paycheck. They're thinking long term. And that's what we have to do. We have to start thinking long term. Now, for me, the family that I already have, there's nothing can be done. But what you can do is create a new family, create a new dynasty. Or you can simply teach your children self-reliance. Either way, it's important to break free of the system. Whether you're rich or you're poor, it's important to break free of the system. You don't want to be a part of this system. This system is built on your back because you are the slave. There are two ways to break free from the slavery, up or down. Build yourself up, make your money, put your money in a foundation so it's not taxed. You've got to get away from paying tax if you want to be rich. So you've got to do what the rich do. You got to put your money in foundations, tax-free foundations, where you don't own the money, but you do control the money. And then you keep this money in your bloodline. You teach your children how to manage this money. You teach them how to not be slaves. You teach them how to not have a slave mindset. On the other hand, you can simply say, I'm only going to get enough money to survive. I'm going to grow my own food. I'm going to have my own livestock, and we're going to live self-sufficient lives. Either one of those is fine. Either one of those is good. It's when you're stuck in the middle. It's when you're stuck in the middle that you are a slave to the system. And it's the people who are stuck in the middle that die with no money or barely any money, who are in debt. They are the sheep being led to slaughter, and they don't even know it. Liam asks, does existence/the universe care about good or evil? What is good to existence or the divine creation? I wonder if one simply has to be aware or cultivate awareness or enlightenment, and then naturally his actions are in tune with the divine because he is one with and can hear the divine. That's a great question. We covered that a little bit at the beginning of this episode. The universe does not care about good and evil. Those are man-made concepts. When a lion kills a gazelle and eats it, do you think the universe cares and gives a lion bad karma? Of course not. These are man-made concepts. But as men, we must follow our own moral code because we understand actions have consequences. That's what karma is. Karma is the law of cause and effect. If you do this, you can expect a reaction to it. It's action and reaction. There will always be an action and a reaction. If you cause excessive pain to other people, you will pay for that. Now, it might not mean that you get justice and you go to court, you got to pay a settlement, but it probably will mean that you will suffer internally. And a lot of rich people do suffer internally. They don't seem to pay the price outwardly. They don't seem to pay the price outside, but internally, it's a world of torment and a world of damnation and fire, hellfire on the inside. So just because somebody is rich, for example, doesn't mean they're actually perfectly happy. A lot of times it's torment on the inside. Of course, that depends on what you did to get there. A lot of rich people do some nasty things to get there. Liam went on to say, when a Satanist kills and drinks the blood of a baby, the energy of one body is transferred to another. The universe loses nothing because energy is never destroyed. So who is registering the act as good or bad? That's a good question, and the answer is that the universe doesn't care. The universe doesn't give a shit. The universe does not care. It is your own sense of morality that will punish you. You won't be punished for your sins. You will be punished by your sins. So it will be you that in fact punishes yourself. If you go to those extremes, you can guarantee that you're going to live a life of torment because every human knows what's right and wrong. We don't need laws to tell us. We don't need the 10 Commandments to tell us. Every human being knows what is right and what is wrong. We all know this inherently. If you're divinely attuned, and if you're in tune with the divine, you're not going to commit any acts like this. If you are not in tune with the divine, if you are out solely for fame and fortune, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to be damned the consequences, then you might engage in something like that, but you will pay the price for it. And that price is going to be inner torment. Michael asks, to break off topic, I want to talk about monk mode. Monk mode gave me the ticket to my own personal and financial freedom, and I highly recommend it for everyone. Yesterday, I made my biggest sell of $400. Even though I've been out of monk mode for over a month, the mindset, discipline, and habits I developed from the program have stayed with me. Appreciate everything you're doing, Vic. Keep up the great work. Ooh, I love getting comments like that in monk mode. Monk mode is one of the best things I've done. Monk mode and 30 days of discipline. If you're trying to make money, if you want to make money, like we've been talking about this episode, get into monk mode, get into 30 days of discipline. As you can see by what Michael said, he made $400 yesterday. Imagine making $400 in a day. Imagine making $400 every day. And then imagine how dumb you would feel for working your job for $12 an hour, $20 an hour, whatever it was, knowing that you can make $400 an hour if you just put your mind to it. And you can learn the mental strategies you need to put your mind into something and turn your creativity in your mind into money in your pocket. Just grab the Monk Mode ebook and follow it. Michael's question was, you mentioned a lot about the influence of demons. What about the role of good spirits or angels? Have you seen their influence in your own life? You know what? No. That's a good question, but no. I've never seen the influence of spirit guides or angels or spirit animals or anything like that. I've never seen anything like that. That being said, a lot of luck has come my way. I've been very lucky But the luck only came my way when I was in the right mindset. And it seems like when you're in the right mindset, in which being in monk mode or being in 30 days of discipline does give you the right mindset. When you're in the right mindset, things just come to you like you're a magnet for success. And you know what? I take that back. You've asked me if I've ever seen angels in my life. I told you no, but that's not true. Angels have come to me at times when I've been in the right mindset, at times when I have done the hard work required. After I've done the hard work required to make money, angels seem to come to me and give me money. I'm not going to go into too many details, but yes, I have even thought that to myself. I thought, wow, angel just came to me. But it wasn't an ethereal angel in thin air. It was a person. It was a real person. So, yeah, if you have the right mindset, and if you are determined to succeed and you follow the right path to the success, angels will come to you, bearing gifts of money. Jay says, I just deleted my Facebook account. Just deleted Twitter off my phone. I ate 90% carnivore diet. I bless my food and try to eat outside and put my bare feet in the grass. I haven't had my nightly cocktail for 5 days. Heavy weights, cold showers, 8 hours of sleep, orange glasses after sunset. I even cut out CBD oil just for the hell of it. Getting my family back in church. Making bank so my wife can eventually quit her corporate slave job and take care of the kids. Monk mode and this podcast was a catalyst for much of this. Thanks, Vic. Ooh, like I said, I love getting comments like that from people who have taken the advice and put in the work to get the rewards that they're after. And I told you I bring this podcast to you just from the mind of an ordinary man. Just so you can make bank so your wife can quit her slave job and she can actually raise your kids. Instead of sending your kids to be raised by the idiots at the school, the people with green hair who teach them all about the nasty things of the world and make them forget about who they are and what they are, you and your wife should be teaching your children. And if you can make enough money to make that happen, why would you not do it? You don't have to go out and make as much money as you can. You don't have to become a billionaire. All you have to do is start making enough money that you're free from reliance on the system so that you can raise your family the way that it should be raised. We're in this predicament that we are in the West because our families did not raise us in the way that we should have been raised. They gave away their control of their own families. And now we find us in the situation we're in today. So for all the family men, for all the married men, for all the fathers out there, don't you think it's important that your wife is able to raise the children in the right way and be there with the children, not be disconnected from the children? That reminds me, I had another question that I didn't get to last week, but I wanted to get to. Somebody asked me about home delivery for a pregnant woman. Should you deliver the baby at home or should you go to the hospital? That's a great question. I'd like to cover it now for you. I think it's personally very important that you don't go to a hospital. Instead, that you deliver the baby at home. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, what if there's medical problems? Yada, da, da, da. People have been delivering their own babies for tens of thousands of years. It's only in the past 50 or 100 years that we've been going to a hospital to deliver babies. So you can deliver your babies at home. You can hire what is called a midwife. A midwife is somebody who assists in the birth of children. That's what their job is. So they have experience doing this. You also can map out a route to the hospital and have a suitcase and a plan ready just in case anything should happen during the birth. But you can have the children at home, and there's a couple great benefits of this. Number one, you can ensure that your children are not injected with poisons that they call vaccines at the hospital. As soon as the baby comes out, they want to start poking holes in it and giving it all these injections. Why do you think we're so sick in the West today? Babies should not have injections like that. You don't need injections to be alive. You don't need chemical injections built from a laboratory to be alive. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The children will be healthier if they don't have vaccinations. The second thing that you want to be aware of, when you deliver a baby in a hospital, they take the baby, they put the baby in your arms. Then what do? They take the baby away from you and they put it in a room with other babies. They rip the baby from your arms and take it away from you. That is severely traumatizing to a baby. Think about this from the perspective of a baby. You're just born. It's the scariest thing in the world. You don't know what's going on. You just want your mom to hold you. And what do? They rip you away from your mother's arms and they put you in this separate room with all these other babies. This is psychologically traumatizing to the young baby. They traumatize you from the moment you're born at these hospitals. These hospitals are like satanic torture chambers. They poke you full of holes with these nasty medicines, these nasty vaccines, and they rip you away from your mother. This is traumatizing. This is trauma-based mind control, and you want to take your children away from this trauma-based mind control if you want to have happy and healthy children in this world. So it's highly important if you are pregnant, if your wife is pregnant, you can and should have your children at home. Hire a midwife, have the midwife come, deliver the baby in a comfortable setting, and then give the baby to the mom and let the baby be with the mom. The baby should not leave the mother's arms for a long time, especially not a newborn. That is psychologically traumatizing, severely traumatizing, and it shouldn't be done. Paul asks, are we in a simulation in the sense that things around us are scripted in laughable ways? You mentioned Usain Bolt, the runner. Now we have Pete Buttigieg, the homosexual candidate for president. Buttigieg. There's no way that is a coincidence. Anything to shove butt in our faces. His last name is spelled Buttigieg. Buttigieg. He goes on to say, even Trump is a weird name. What family's last name is Trump? You think of Trumps like in a deck of cards. The exciting guy who has casinos all over and makes flashy, risky business decisions is named Trump. No way that's real. My eyes are wide open now. What do you think, Vic? Yeah, this goes back to what I was saying about what we see on television. The people we see on television, it is scripted. They're actors, and it's scripted. Simple as that. We see names like Usain Bolt. The fastest man in the world, his last name is Bolt? Come on. Our Trump card is named Trump? Come on. Now, I believe that we might be in a simulation. I'm open to that theory that we might be in a simulation. I don't know. But what is for sure is that a lot of this is scripted, and these plans are done in advance. To get Donald Trump into the White House was a plan way in advance, from back in the 80s or even beyond that. It's not something that was new. It's something that was planned for a long time. Are they really ridiculously good planners, or are we actually in a simulation? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that one. That might be something we have to delve further into in the B&D podcast. So yeah, a lot of what we see on TV, most of what we see on TV is totally scripted, and these things were set in motion. These people were picked to be who they are. Bolt, for example, the fastest man in the world is named Bolt from Jamaica. There's nobody in Jamaica with the last name Bolt. One thing I've noticed that these people do is that they like to model what they do after the New Testament. They like to model what they do after the Bible. Now, one might say that Revelation is coming true and that all the things that are in the Bible are finally happening because the Bible is true. I personally think that they read the Bible, they know the Bible very well, they study the Bible, and then they try to bring us things that mimic what is said in the Bible. And in the Bible, they talk a lot about the trumpets. And if you hear the sound of the trumpets, then that's your warning. For example, Ezekiel 33. Listen to that number. Ezekiel 33. This is what it says. The word of the Lord came to me. It said, Son of man, speak to your people and say to them, when I bring the sword against the land, and the people of the land choose one of their men and make him their watchman, and he sees the sword coming against the land and blows the trumpet to warn the people. Then, if anyone hears the trumpet, but does not heed the warning, and the sword comes out and takes their life, their blood will be on their own head. Since they heard the sound of the trumpet, but did not heed the warning, their blood will be on their own head. If they had heeded the warning, they would have saved themselves. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes someone's life, that person's life will be taken because of their sin. But I will hold the watchman accountable for their blood. Listen to that. Did you hear? They're warning you. They say if you hear the sound of the trumpet and you do nothing and you die, your blood will be on your own hands because you did not listen to the sound of the trumpets. The trumpets are the warning. This is something they go through in the Bible a lot. Well, what does trumpet sound like? What would be the sound of the trumpets? Could it be something that sounds like Trump Pence, the president and the vice president of the United States? The Trump Pence. Can you hear the sound of the trumpets now? Now, I don't want to peddle fear, friend. I don't want to say that's the sound of the trumpets. You gotta get out or you're going to die. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel it in the air, like something is happening. I don't know what's happening. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I personally feel something is definitely happening with the Trump-Pence presidency. I felt it just right away back in 2016. I thought, goodness gracious, there's more here than meets the eye. This is not just a presidency. This is not your normal presidency. Something is going on here. And now I feel like I hear the sound of the trumpets very well. And because I hear the sound of the trumpets, blood is not going to be on my hand. No, Now, it could be that it's all just a coincidence, that if you hear the sound of the trumpets and you do nothing, your blood is on your hand. And it could be a coincidence they're just warning you with the Trump-Pence election. That could all be a coincidence, or it could be that, in fact, they talk to us in these ways. They give us these hints in these ways because they have to give you warning. They have to give you consent. It's part of their rules. They have to give you some kind of warning or knowledge, but they don't have to come right out and give it to you openly. They can hide it. They can say, well, we named it Trump-Pence. If you didn't hear the sound of the trumpets, it's your own fault. Well, we named him Usain Bolt. If you thought that was a real name, that's your own fault. Roy asks, hey, Vic, question. It's been observed that Andrew Carnegie, direct mentor to Napoleon Hill, was a member of the Great White Brotherhood. It has also been said that the vast majority of secret societies are derivatives of this brotherhood, Masonry included. It would seem then that his seminal work, The Law of Success in 16 Lessons, later rebranded into Think and Grow Rich, would largely be based in their teachings. Do you have a perspective on this? That's a great question. The answer is that yes, the law of attraction, the rules in Think and Grow Rich, and the things that I talk about that will help you get rich do seem to be, in fact, directly related to teachings of these secret societies like the Great White Brotherhood or even the Freemasons. So yes, the laws of success are always the same, and they are discussed in these esoteric or secret societies or hidden societies or these kind of new age, your mind can do anything you want, philosophies. So that part is true. Now, we talked about Freemasonry. Some things in Freemasonry are true, some things are false. Just like in the Bible, nothing is all false and nothing is all true. There's a lot of truth in Freemasonry and there's a lot of falsehoods in Freemasonry. And I think you'll find if you go back far enough and you look into the origins of Freemasonry, you'll probably find that it was a pure and quote unquote holy doctrine. And then over the ages, it was infiltrated by the you-know-whos and turned into what it is today. So, a lot of truth in Freemasonry, a lot of falsehoods in Freemasonry, a lot of truthhoods in the secret societies, all these brotherhoods, ancient brotherhoods, yada, da, da, da. Truthhoods mixed in with some falsehoods. They've always got to mix in some falsehoods with some truths. Gordo asks, who created America? Why was America created in the first place? Were Freemasons or Jews behind its creation? Was the creation of the USA an agenda to create a world superpower and then to use that power to corrupt traditionalist cultures throughout the world? The US destroyed separate European races by putting them together in a melting pot. Now it is doing the same with other races. That's a great question. And we know that the United States was founded by Protestant Christians who were Freemasons. We know that. We don't know what Freemasonry was like 300 or 400 years ago. So we don't know if it was for nefarious purposes or for pure purposes. It would seem that the purposes were pure and unique, and it would seem that the Jews were not involved in the creation of the United States only because it was a free country. Anytime the Jews get involved, you don't really have freedom. You don't really have your own personal power. And that's what America once stood for, your own personal power, your own personal freedom. So we've been given so many lies about history that it's really hard to come to the truth. It's really hard to come to who actually started the United States. But it would seem that the United States was started to build a pure and free country, and it would seem that the people worked hard for that. At the same time, the people who created this country were Freemasons. George Washington, supposedly the first president of the United States, was a Freemason. However, I've heard it said that George Washington did not attend a Freemason lodge for the last 30 years of his life. So, who really knows what to believe? So much of our history has been hidden from us. So much of our history has been a downright lie. And you'll be shocked to know that when they came here, people were already living in the United States. People were already living in America. And I don't just mean bands of nomadic Indians. I mean, there were cities of Indians, people living in the United States, in North America. They had cities full of people. We never hear about that. So all of our history, it's been rewritten and basically lied to. Some truths mixed in with a bunch of falsehoods so that we don't know what's true and what's false. History is probably the most interesting thing that I look into personally. History is it's the history of us. So it's so important to know, which is why that it's hidden by the rulers of this world are parasites. That's what we can call them. They are parasites. And they hide this knowledge from us so that we don't develop personal power, so that we are not empowered, so that we are dumb, so that we have amnesia, so that we don't know who we are, and so that we don't take any control, which is why I like to study history. I want to know who we are. I want to know what we are. I want to know where we came from. To answer your question, who created America? Protestant Freemasons created America. What was their intention? Well, I'll tell you what. The United States was not subverted until later. The worst of the subversion was the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank, which happened in 1913 or 1933, and then the instatement of the income tax. The creation of the Federal Reserve Bank, creation of the income tax, those happened between 1913 and 1933. I don't know the exact dates. Those were the two single worst things that ever happened in American history. That was total subversion of the American dream. That is what enslaved America. Then in 1965, you had the Immigration Act. Before 1965, America was a completely European nation from peoples of Western Europe. That's what it was. We are a nation, a culture of people from Western Europe. It was over 90% what we call white. After 1965 is when we started letting in immigrants from other countries that don't really fit with our culture. And that is what has been killing our culture and getting rid of our culture. Today we say in America we don't have a culture. We don't have a culture of our own. Well, in the past we did have a culture. We did have an American culture, and it was subverted. It was infiltrated and subverted. And you know, and I know who's behind the 1965 Immigration Act. It rhymes with choose. Jeremy asks, Uncle Vic, as you point out, alcohol, marijuana, and other drugs lower our natural defenses and make us susceptible to demonic possession. Do you believe that modafinil leaves one open to the same vulnerability? I feel as if I am possessed by the Spirit of God himself when I take modafinil. Okay, that's a great question. Any drug you take to excess will leave you open to demonic possession. Anything you do in moderation, you're going to be fine. You can drink a beer here and there. You can probably smoke a J here and there and not be possessed. It's anything that you do habitually that you habitually lower your defenses. So if you take a modafinil every now and again to help you do whatever, you're going to be fine. You're not going to have any problems. If you take modafinil every single day without fail, you leave yourself open. And I'll tell you one smart drug that leaves you really defenseless against the demonic is Adderall. Adderall is the worst thing you can take. The worst thing you can take. If you take Adderall every day, you are open for a possession of some kind. You absolutely are. Adderall is the worst thing you could ever take. Modafinil is like a multivitamin compared to Adderall. So stay away from Adderall. Use modafinil only in moderation. You'll be fine. Music is All asks, Victor, my friendly friend, you say that you would choose children over $10 million. I agree, and I already got one son. We also discussed what we want. We also discussed that we want a white, young, feminine woman. How exactly are you going to find a young white woman who wants to give up the party lifestyle and raise children? Ooh, that's a good question, and I don't have an answer for that one. The purpose of life is to bring new life into this world and to raise the young generation and continue your bloodline. Again, I bring this podcast to you from the mindset of a normal man who just wants to have children, bring children in this life, and raise children. I come to you with that mindset because I'm stuck. I see a huge problem. I don't even want to be in the same room with white Western women. I don't even want to be in the same room as them. How the heck could I ever find one to breed with and raise children with? The answer is I don't know. I really don't know. And that's one reason why I bring this podcast to you. What has happened to our cultures is ridiculous. It's terrible what has happened. It's absurd what has happened to our people. And I don't even know the answer. How could I breed with one? I don't even want to be in the same room as one of them. How could I ever breed with one of them? Here's a funny thing. Most people who are quote unquote masculine or conservative or right wing, any man who acts like a man generally doesn't have a white wife. Any man who acts like a man has to take a wife of a different race. Because those are the only ones who act like women. White women don't act like women anymore. They act like gay men. That's what they act like. I can only think of one person who lives a traditional lifestyle who acts like a man who actually has a white wife. That's Varg from Thulian Perspective on YouTube. I don't know how they met, but I'm going to take a guess. Varg was in prison. She started writing to him in prison. That's how they met and got married. That's my guess. I don't know how they met. So how the heck are you going to meet a white woman who wants to be traditional and raise children? I don't know. Go to prison for 10 years? Wait until she writes you? Marry when you get out? Really, I don't know. I'm stuck on this. I don't meet white women who are acceptable. I don't meet them. I don't come across them. I don't know where they are. I don't know if they exist. If you have ideas, let me know. What I know is that after living in Asia, I don't want anything to do with white women. I don't want anything to do with them. But I realize it takes two to tango. You need them for the bloodline. You need them to sire your children. So we're put in a tricky situation. Our women, not the greatest of options, but seems like we're going to have to either suicide the bloodline or pick one of them. So really, I don't know. It seems like it has been my experience that men don't really choose the women. The women choose the men. So the best thing you can do in this case is just be the type of man that the woman wants to choose. That doesn't mean being a good guy. Women don't like good guys. You don't want to be a good man with a good job and a good career, a good car, wear a nice blazer and have a nice haircut. Women don't care about that. Women like bad boys. Women like bad guys. Like Varg, for example, is in prison for murder. That's probably how he met his wife. They've got like 6 kids now, 6 blonde white kids. So that goes to show you, number one, that women don't like the pussy whipped type of guys. They don't like the guys who follow the rules. Let me put it that way. Women don't like men who follow the rules. Women don't like men who put the rules of the government before the rules of themselves. Women like the rebels, the outlaws, the outcasts. So basically, be as big of a jerk as you can, and the women will find you. The nicer you are, the more you repel women. The more of a jerk and an outcast and a rebel to society you are, the more women will flock to you. Now, of those women who flock to you, are any of them going to actually act like women? Ugh, I've never met one personally. I've dated a lot of white girls in my life. Not in the past 10 years. None in the past 10 years. But before I went to Asia, I dated a lot of white girls. I ran through a lot of white girls. You asked me if I would marry any of them. I'll tell you no. Sure wouldn't. Sure would not. Not a single one of them. So, what is the solution? Be a magnet. Put yourself in a position where she can find you. Shokunin asks, at what point do you think the study of the esoteric is enough? The esoteric means hidden knowledge, or knowledge that is not common knowledge. It's the opposite of common knowledge. And the answer is never. I will never stop studying the esoteric because the esoteric is knowledge. I will never stop studying knowledge. When you stop learning is when you start dying. You can never stop learning. If you're a self-made man with the plan, you cannot stop learning. And the only real knowledge to be had is hidden from the masses because the masses can't handle the truth. If I were to come on here and tell you the exact truth, no holds barred, you wouldn't be able to handle it. Well, you would be able to handle it. But if I were to go to a family reunion and tell them the truth, they would not be able to handle it. The regular people are not able to handle the truth. This is what the Freemasons got right. This is why they hide part of their truths, because the regular people cannot handle the truth. Regular people are too stupid, too retarded, too sheep-like to handle the truth. That's why all of the real knowledge is hidden, and you've got to go searching for this knowledge. And that search is what makes you a better man, a smarter man, a more effective man, a more successful man. You have to go searching for it. You have to go to the Shaolin Temple. The Shaolin Temple don't go to you. So I will never stop learning. I will never join any group. I will never join any club. I will never be a member of any group whatsoever. But I will learn from every group that I can possibly learn from. Every one of them. I will take from everything. Anywhere I can get knowledge, I will get it. And you can bet your ass all the knowledge in the world, all the real knowledge, is hidden from the masses of the dumbed down people. But it's hidden in plain sight. It's hidden right in front of their face. They're just too blind to see it. So you don't have to dig too deep to find esoteric knowledge. You just got to look a little bit deeper than average Alan looks. Anthony asks, I think you should go into Stoicism, which is the endurance of pain or hardship without the display of feelings and without complaints. Okay, I would like to go into Stoicism for you, and I would like to tell you why I don't believe in Stoicism. In a nutshell, here it is. Silence is compliance. Silence is compliance. When you're stoic, that means you endure pain and hardship without display of feelings and without complaint. Well, guess what? If somebody hurts you and you don't say anything, you are complying with them. You give them consent to keep hurting you. So I don't believe in Stoicism for that specific reason. You must use your voice to be heard. And if you don't use your voice, and if somebody's hurting you, they're going to keep hurting you because your silence is compliance. And I'll give you one example. I always think to the Russian people who were killed by the Bolshevik Jews in the Bolshevik Revolution. Up to 60 million Russian Christians were killed by the Bolshevik Jews in the Russian Revolution. 60 million were killed. If you know Russians, you know that they are stoic. They don't show their emotions whatsoever. They don't show pain. They don't show hardship. They don't complain. And I always think to this, if you showed a little bit of complaint, if you showed a little bit of hardship, if you fought back a little bit, up to 60 million of you would not have been killed. So it's up to you to fight back against injustice, to fight back against those who would want to hurt you or harm you. You must fight back in any way that you can, whether that is with your voice or with your hands, because your silence is compliance, and you must not comply to the evils of this world. You must not comply with the evils of this world. And when you keep your mouth shut in the face of evil, guess what you do? You comply with evil. You give consent to evil. You must not give consent. You must open your mouth. When you see something is wrong, you must say something. You must. It's your duty as a man. Leo Sinclair asks, hey Vic, what do you think about cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency enabling the possibility of going gold? Ooh, that's a great question. We've got a lot of questions about cryptocurrency. Let's take a step in that direction for the next episode. I'll answer that question at the beginning of the next episode. We will discontinue our talks about complaining about the modern world, talks about the Bible. Let's talk about making some money with cryptocurrency and buying yourself some freedom. Until then, my friendly friends, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to iTunes. I want you to leave a 5-star rating for the Bold and Determined podcast so that other people may find this podcast and wake up to the illusions of this world. And until then, my friendly friends, have a nice day.